That's true. And
Yeah.
like to tie these experiences with some of the older Filipino generation, and just hearing that I mean, we have some racism too. We have some thoughts on African Americans or black people, whatever you yeah, what what have you guys heard about the those generations and their thoughts on
Well, I'll tell you that a lot of the older generation. Oh God. Okay, how do I start? Okay, so a lot of the older generation, from my observation, it's all about what they feel, where they match their ethics and their morality. And for them,
Mm.
many of them feel like you got to listen, to listen, and you got to follow. You know what I mean? And to follow, to be good, you have to follow what law enforcement or government tells you to do, because they are the people who hold the power, and they're good. There's an assumption that they're good, and that what they're doing, what they're doing is good, and that they trust them. They put their trust into the government, and usually it's more of the conservative side. And
Well, don't you think it has part to do with being like in outside of the Philippines? Because I mean, our parents would have came from a place where they will always see this generally. Well, not always, but for the most part, they will see being here in North America or UK as a way better alternative than being in the Philippines. And so there is a deep sense of gratitude that comes with how they speak. And so when they do see Americans, people in America, kind of like not
Not happy,
not not happy, not uh,
satisfied.
not celebrating this
Yeah.
American dream thing, which I mean that's another conversation. But not celebrating that is disturbing to them, because their narrative is that this is the land of milk and honey. Hey, we
Mm.
just exodus into Egypt, where there's like this is the place of salvation here. That's a narrative that, whether or not it's truly true, that's another thing. But that's part of the narrative that makes us accept, I think, why things are the way they are. And like for example, you definitely hear this in our parents' generation. When in Rome, do what the Romans do. That was their thing. Uh, hey, this is not your country anyway, but this is a heck of a lot better than where we came from. So just do what you do. Don't make waves. It's okay if you're a stranger in a different shore, but your opportunities are better here. And so that's what they're hedging their bets on. And so I think that part of that comes into conflict with being raised here and being told, yeah, your opportunities
Mm.
are immense, they're great. And then when you realize, there are certain ceilings. It is about who you know, and if I don't know those people, I might not be part of the club there. Um, hmm, People do have perceptions about like what I look like based on the color of my skin and the and class and religion, and they will make judgments on all of those kind of things. And that's how the human being is. We'll make judgments about that.
the funny thing is, if your beliefs are so strong, and polarized to one side or whatever, it's like it doesn't matter what somebody else says. It's like it doesn't matter what somebody else says. It's always going to be wrong. Even if you have dialogue, and that's a child. I think I find that the most challenging part on the extremes of both sides, with either liberal or conservative, is when they get to the point where it's like, no matter what you say, if I talk against Trump, you're bad. You know what I mean? Or no matter what I say, if I try to be reasonable and thoughtful about what he said, he meant this. Like then like an ultra liberal will be like, "Nah, man, you're racist." You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's difficult sometimes. It's difficult sometimes, but on racism, I feel it can be pretty clear. I mean, that dude, George Floyd having his neck crushed like that was very clear. And I don't know, the look on the cop's face and how he did it, and didn't even listen to the folks who are around there, and the cops who did he even, I mean, any martial art or anything that you do, anybody who's involved with law enforcement, they know once the man is in control, then, and they don't have to reinforce that anymore. You're supposed to check on his well-being after they have him in control. And he wasn't even moving, and he was hardly moving when the guy was on his neck. He could have put his knee on his shoulder to control the body. There are things that I feel are very clear. But when it comes to like what our going back to like some of the older generation and how they feel towards like things like particularly protesting, like we know some folks out there, some who have, who are in their 20s, and they're going out in the streets and protesting, and they're protesting. They're not looting and joining the rest of that group. But some of their parents, they can't understand why they're doing it, because in the Philippines, if you're doing that stuff, you're considered like, they automatically like connect you to like NPA or the communist or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a different thing in the Philippines. It's like, oh, dude, if you're protesting, you're part of that kind of like communist group or something. And that's not how we see things over here. It's a different kind of mentality. And I don't know, man. Like, it's one of those things that just tend to persist with the older folks, and
they don't really have a lot
of
diverse experiences with other people. Like, I know that my parents don't really know a lot of Black people, right? So those types of interactions they don't really have. They've never really have, especially growing up. So they do have this misconception about other people, especially because we're surrounded by a lot of Sikhs, a lot of Punjabis, and my our older our older parents, they didn't grow up with them, and so they have this, like other mentality of them, like, okay, they're Bombay, we're Filipino, therefore different, therefore see differently because they never grew up with them. Now, I grew up with a lot of Sikhs and a lot of other nationalities and that, so I tend to think that I'm a bit more open-minded, even though I'm still kind of racist. But like, definitely because of my experiences are different, and with terms to diversity, I have an open-mindedness compared to how the older generation, most of their interactions with the foreigners are usually like, what this, or else, right? So they have, and their interactions with a lot of white people have been very positive. Therefore, they will see white people way more positive, as opposed to again, their only interactions with other nationalities usually are through media, which are, again, we can go down this rabbit hole of media being controlled by the white people or whatever, and so that's what their perception is of other people, and therefore, and even I can definitely attest to like coming to Canada for the first time, and then the first interaction with somebody who is different from you, and it's negative. That's definitely gonna like stick to you more, and because of the fact that you see them as an other, it'll definitely give that higher divide of you trying to interact with them or see them in a different light or in a positive light. So like basically racism still exists and whatnot. But,
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like in the older generation, like there is quite a negative connotation attached to African Americans or Black people, especially in the Filipino community. I feel like, I don't know, what do you like? Do you guys see that?
I feel that there's honestly a little bit of colonial mentality connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
Just what I mean. It's like who are the people teaching them? It's kind of weird because the Philippines back then has a history of like black folks helping out Filipinos, especially during the Philippine-American War when they brought the Buffalo soldiers who were trained to kill the Native Americans. They brought them over. Majority of them were black. A lot of them were black. And many of them just escaped when they realized, man, this war is garbage. You know what I mean? Like they ended up escaping in the Philippines and then working with Filipinos. And so there's a lot of history there that people like don't understand, that like, you know, black folks are part of Philippine history as well, you know, and
Correct.
and